Okay, we are tackling a deeply, deeply relatable mystery today. Have you ever noticed that persistent, almost agonizing need to just take responsibility for things that absolutely aren't your fault? You know the feeling? It's when a perfectly normal interaction leaves you second-guessing literally everything you said, agonizing over whether you somehow offended someone. Well, today, we're unpacking the architecture of the unnecessary apology. We're going to explore exactly why we say sorry for simply taking up space, where this reflex actually comes from, and most importantly, how to finally break the habit.
I mean, picture this. Have you ever bumped into a mannequin at a department store and reflexively apologized to it? Like, you physically flinch, you mumble, "Oh, my bad," and then you realize you are talking to a literal piece of plastic. Or, hey, maybe you found yourself saying, "I'm so sorry because the weather ruined a friend's outdoor plans." It's that automatic knee-jerk reflex where the words just tumble out of your mouth way before your brain even registers that you haven't actually done anything wrong. Now, it is incredibly easy to just write this off as being excessively polite, right? Good manners. But as we unpack this, you're going to see that this isn't about etiquette at all. It's actually an involuntary survival strategy.
So there's actually a clinical name in psychology for this deeply rooted reflex. It's called fawning. And fawning happens when your nervous system subconsciously tries to navigate a world that feels unpredictable or even unsafe by intensely managing everyone else's emotions. It is a total nervous system hijack. You aren't consciously choosing to apologize. Your body is literally reacting to a perceived threat. You're basically trying to appease everyone around you, making sure they're happy, they're comfortable, they're totally unbothered, also that you can finally feel safe yourself. It's this unconscious transaction, right? You're trading your own comfort for the guarantee that absolutely no one is upset with you.
To really get to the bottom of why you automatically apologize for things you didn't do, we have to travel back to the origin story, your childhood. Because this reflex, it doesn't just appear out of thin air. It forms in emotion-dismissing, highly unpredictable environments. Just imagine growing up in a house where an adult's mood could shift like the weather, literally without a single warning. One minute everything's fine, and the next, a slammed cabinet door signals this massive, unspoken crisis. Or maybe it was an environment where expressing your own needs directly just made you a target or an inconvenience. Your young brain had to get incredibly smart incredibly fast. It had to adapt to survive that emotional turbulence. Think about how your nervous system actually adapted over time. In those early years, you're just a little kid trying to navigate pure chaos. But by the time you're a bit older, you've evolved into this highly tuned emotional radar. You become the kid who senses tension the absolute second it enters a room. You take on that super heavy role of the family peacemaker, constantly trying to diffuse that tension before it explodes into a full-blown conflict. And in those critical, high-stress moments, saying sorry became your ultimate shield. It was a brilliant, low-maintenance way to make sure you wouldn't become the lightning rod for someone else's frustration. Let's be real, it wasn't politeness, it was pure self-preservation. But here is the catch, and it's a big one. This early childhood adaptation creates what scientists actually call toxic stress. It's basically a blaring internal alarm system. And the tragic part? That alarm never quite learned how to turn off. Even after you physically grew up, moved out, and left that unpredictable environment far behind, the alarm keeps ringing. Your brain is tightly wired any form of social friction, even a tiny, minor disagreement, to extreme life or death danger. Your body literally reacts as if a disappointed boss is an apex predator. And that leaves you trapped in this perpetual state of survival mode, constantly scanning your environment for threats that just aren't there anymore. Because of all that lingering toxic stress, you've probably developed a lifelong habit of social masking. It's like you're running this hidden, incredibly exhausting PR campaign for yourself every single day. You perform relentless agreement and cheerfulness just to ensure everyone around you stays regulated. And why? Well, because the child inside you still deeply believes that their happiness is directly tied to your physical and emotional safety. Over time, "I'm sorry" simply became the easiest shortcut to maintain this secret agreement. It's an unspoken contract where you've decided that you, and you alone, are totally responsible for the room's emotional weather. If it rains, you automatically take the blame.
Okay, let's bring this survival reflex into, say, a typical Tuesday at the office. A colleague is incredibly stressed out because they missed a critical deadline on a project that you have absolutely nothing to do with. Zero. Yet you find yourself hovering near their desk saying, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that happened. Can I help? What can I do?" Now, on the surface, sure, that looks like pure kindness and teamwork. But internally, your childhood alarm system is running a frantic background check, asking if their stress is somehow your fault or if they're eventually going to take it out on you. You feel this vague, persistent wrongness when someone else is unhappy. It's as if your very presence in the room is a debt you have to immediately repay by being hyper-useful or overly apologetic.
Living like this takes an incredible invisible toll.
I mean, really think about the sheer exhaustion of running that background check 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. When you spend your entire waking life screenshotting every micro-expression, every heavy sigh, every subtle tonal shift in a room just to calculate if you need to apologize, you are essentially powering an 8K IMAX experience inside your head. It requires massive, continuous computing power, and your nervous system simply wasn't built to sustain that level of intense processing without crashing. It inevitably leads to profound burnout, crippling anxiety, and this constant feeling that you are just running on empty.
Which brings us to a really stark contrast in how we live our lives. The human doing carries a massive cognitive load. It's a state of constant performance that just entirely drains your battery. It's that version of you that lies wide awake, staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m., replaying perfectly normal conversations, agonizing over whether your sorry sounded sincere enough or if you somehow offended the barista. Compare that frantic, exhausting energy to the human being. This is a state of resting, of existing securely within your own boundaries. It's the profound peace of simply occupying a room completely free from the immense weight of managing everyone else's emotional state.
So here's the million-dollar question for this explainer. How do we actually break this suffocating loop of unnecessary guilt? How do we finally transition from a drained human doing to a secure human being? Well, it's not about just telling yourself to stop saying sorry. We know that doesn't work, because this is an ingrained reflex. Instead, we need to actively rewire the brain's apology loop so you can finally reclaim your mental energy and stop apologizing for simply existing.
The path forward really relies on 2 highly practical therapeutic steps. Step 1 is name it to tame it. The next time you feel that familiar surge of anxiety making you want to apologize for a lull in the conversation or someone else's bad mood, just pause. Seriously, pause and say to yourself, I notice I'm having a fawning response right now. Labeling it creates this tiny essential gap of safety. It lets your logical mind take the wheel back from those childhood survival instincts. And step 2 is practicing exit strategy autonomy. Establish clear boundaries. Remind yourself you are not a hospital. You are not a bottomless well for other people's problems. Staying quiet instead of apologizing might feel like you're dismantling your entire identity at first, but it actively teaches your brain that you are absolutely worthy of existing without an explanation.
Now, as we talk about healing, it is so vital to acknowledge that this process is slow and honestly, it can be highly emotional. Often it involves genuinely grieving the child you were, the kid who had to be too smart and way too mature for their own good just to keep the peace at home. If that resonates with you, please hear this. You aren't broken for having these reflexes. You are incredibly resourceful. You survived a very difficult, unpredictable environment using the absolute best tools you had at the time. You protected yourself, but that kid deserves to finally rest. It's time to let the capable adult you've become handle the boundaries now.
I want to wrap up this explainer with one really powerful truth that I hope you take away today. You do not owe the world an apology for taking up space. If you're the person who instinctively apologizes when someone else steps on your toes, I'd really love to hear your experience in the comments. Does over-apologizing feel like a heavy mask you just can't take off? Or are you finally starting to find your true voice? Reflect on that. Because realizing that your sorries kept you safe in the past is the absolute very first step to ensuring they don't have to dictate your future.